Hi everyone. So today I'm going over the changes I've made to the off-grid solar setup on my shed where I work on my bikes and stuff. It originally comprised of a single 100-watt solar panel and a Anker Powerhouse 400, I believe, generator as they call it, which is a solar charge controller, an inverter and the battery sort of all bundled into one. Now, that worked fine for a while. I could plug things into it and run AC off it and have the lights running off it. But then I started to see these weird issues where basically the screen would either just stay on the whole time after it had been sitting overnight, or the screen would just not turn on. It was still providing power, but it just was glitching out. And after various to's and fro's with Anker, they said, oh, it's not meant to be left connected to a solar panel overnight, basically. If the voltage drops, and this is something that another YouTuber tested out after I made some comments on his forum, was if the voltage on the panels drops below a certain amount, it basically glitches out the screen, and you have to sort of leave it alone to reset for a while, which is not ideal. So at that point, Anker actually, said, "Okay, send it back to us, and we'll give you a refund," which was fine because it was like £400. So from that, I spent that money on a standalone solar charge controller. That's an MPPT solar charge controller, and a battery and an inverter and wires and stuff, and set up my own setup. And that worked fine as well, but I want to be able to have a bit more redundancy and a bit more confidence in being able to leave devices connected overnight, etc. So that's what I'm working on here. The solar setup I have has charge controller getting power from the solar panel here, and then that runs down here, goes into this battery, which I've got disconnected right now, and the inverter would go here, and that's connected also to the battery. And once that's fine for manually having the inverter turned on when I'm in here, sometimes you want to leave stuff running off the inverter overnight or whatever, and you don't want to kill the battery, because if you discharge it too much, it'll damage it. And they have battery management systems in them, but it's best not to rely just on that. So that's why I've got this setup where I've got a battery monitor which will turn off power to the inverter when it's too low, and then it'll turn it back on when the voltage gets high enough. So for part of this install, I need to add a remote switch to this inverter, since just connecting it directly to the battery protect is going to throw way too much current through it. So when you first connect the inverter, if you tap on the battery, it will spark a bit as it charges up the capacitor. So you probably heard a pop. Maybe you didn't see a spark, but you definitely heard a pop. And if that happens in the battery protect, it'll burn it out. But you can connect the battery protect to the inverter switch, which turns it on and off, but doesn't charge up the capacitors, or it leaves the capacitors charged up, I guess. So this model obviously doesn't come with one, it's pretty basic, but I've taken the front cover off, and there's two nice big contacts. I can solder a wire to it, run it through the housing, and then make a separate remote switch. So now we have the wires on the back coming out, connected into a switch. So I mean, I can still switch it on from here, on and off, but I leave it in off. And on this switch here, I can turn it on, turn it off. So then this can actually be, well, what I'm going to do is wire this switch also into the battery protect via relay. So it can either have the battery protect turned on and have the relay turning this on, or have it turned on manually via this switch, since it's a three-way, sorry. Put a knot in the back of the wire and file down a bit of one of these vents so I could run the wire through. So then it's got tug restraint, can't be pulled off, which keeps the terrible soldering from being affected. Okay, so now I have the battery protect connected to the battery via this main line in, and the output goes to this relay. The relay is grounded to the grounding block, which is also the ground for the battery protect. This will allow me to actually disable the relay manually, so I'm going to add a switch in which cuts this off. But when I do it via the software, basically I can turn it on and off by the software if I want to, but I'm also going to set some upper and lower limits. So this will turn the relay off when the voltage drops below a certain amount, and will only turn it on when it gets above a certain amount. So just to get a sense of what it's like when the relay turns off, I can do it on the app, but I can also do it by disconnecting this, and as you heard, the relay turned itself off. And basically, which is, this is just a connection, so it just connects one side to the other. So plugging it back in, the relay turns back on again. Now the two parts here, they are gonna provide continuity. So that's the next thing to test. So we're doing a continuity test. Right now the relay is enabled. And now I've just unplugged that, so there should be no continuity. And there isn't. Well, now I can wire this up to the remote for the inverter, and that will turn on and off the inverter. Here I'm recording from the phone, where I'm setting up the Victron app, which allows me to connect to the battery protect module, and doing the update, and there you can see the battery voltage that it's sensing, and doing a manual override to disable and re-enable the power, and there it's disabled by the remote, which is the cable sort of disconnect that you can do externally. And here are the settings for the battery protect, where we can choose the presets for the connect and disconnect. Here I'm playing around with the shutdown and restart voltages, and you can also choose what kind of mode it's in, so whether it's a buzzer or relay. There's a lithium-ion mode which allows you to actually connect to a BMS on certain lithium-ion batteries, but don't use that. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so the setup is pretty much done. I've isolated the solar charger for now, but we have ground coming from the battery straight into the inverter. We have positive coming from the battery through the fuse, through the main switch, into this fuse board, but then also directly straight into the inverter. We then have power coming from this little fuse board into the battery protect module. Then the output from that goes into this relay. This relay then connects up both ends of the remote wire, which goes into the inverter. But I can also just use the switch to override that and go straight into connecting the remote. I can also use this switch in the other position to disconnect the remote wire for the battery protector itself, so I can switch the battery protect module off. So if I go one way, that one has now powered the battery protect module, and that has in turn turned on the relay because the battery is charged enough, and that's turned on the inverter. If I go the other way, it turns off the relay, but then I can manually override it and turn the power back on just with the switch in the other position. So yeah, that's it. Now I just need to hook up the ground for the MPPT controller to finish everything being wired up, and that's basically the setup for now. So now I have the MPPT connected, and no solar right now. I'm going to turn the solar back on. Okay, so 13.3 volts on the battery. What have we got on the panel? 18 volts on the panel with 0.4 amps. It's a bit cloudy. And currently the inverter is on because this is in the battery protect mode, and the battery protect is on because the voltage is above 12.4 or something like that, which I set it to. Once it drops down to below 12.4, it'll turn off the inverter. If I switched it down into the direct mode, it would just override that. I could actually override it up here with the switch as well if I wanted to, but this one's easy to get to. Yeah, for now, that's it. I mean, I've got extra spots there to add in other fuse accessories if I want to. I can wire some lights in directly or whatever if I want to, but for now, that's good. So the other part of what I did was to angle the solar panel so it's actually facing the sun rather than just facing the sky, which especially in the winter is nowhere where the sun is. So I'm now producing almost 4 times more power. So after setting up all of that, I wasn't getting the performance that I was expecting to get out of the battery, and I then purchased a little capacity or kilometer tester, I think it's called, which allows you to actually calculate how many amp hours are being pumped through it, and yeah, the battery was significantly off. I then ended up buying another one of the same brand of batteries. These are Ecoworthy batteries, and that one was performing better, but still not perfect. It's still not getting to 20 amp hours. But I'm going to put that down to my bad testing process. But yeah, I ended up wiring up 3 of those and changing the setup, including more fuses and fusing the inverter through the fuse board, and yeah, so that's the setup I've got right now, and it seems to be working just fine. Sorry if that was a bit technical and not bike related, but let me know if you are interested in learning more about this sort of stuff. Otherwise I will never post it again. Hopefully I don't have to. Anyways, cheers.